I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heather, would you please take roll?
Councilmember Bachman.
Here.
Councilmember Beaton.
Here.
Mayor Sullivan.
Here.
Councilmember Pratt.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Grabowski.
Here.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
Here.
City Manager.
Here.
City Attorney.
Here.
DPW Director.
Here.
Planning and Zoning Administrator. Police Chief. Fire Chief.
Here.
City Engineer.
Here.
Roll call complete.
Thank you. We have a few amendments to the agenda. First one is a motion to amend the agenda to remove item 8, new business consideration of a redevelopment liquor license for the Outsider Restaurant located at 457 River Street. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Heather, would you please take roll?
Councilmember Bachman.
Yes.
Councilmember Beaton.
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilmember Pratt.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grabowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Second one is a motion to amend agenda to add item 10, consideration of a closed session, attorney-client privileged communication. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Heather, would you please take roll?
Councilmember Bachman.
Yes.
Councilmember Beaton.
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilmember Pratt.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grabowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Public hearings, we have none. Citizens' comments on agenda-related items. Nobody? Move to consent agenda. All items marked with an asterisk are on the consent agenda and considered by the city manager to be routine matters. Prior to approval, any member of council may have an item removed and taken up during the regular portion of the meeting. Items include approval of minutes, payroll, invoices, notification regarding study session. At this time, council could take action to approve consent agenda as presented. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Heather, please take roll.
Councilmember Bachman.
Yes.
Councilmember Beaton.
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilmember Pratt. Mayor Pro Tem Grabowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Introduction of new employee Laura McKenzie.
Council, I would like to introduce Laura McKenzie. She has come to us from Ludington, and she's going to give a brief background of herself and what she's going to be doing for the city.
Hi, my name is Laura McKenzie. I started just under a month ago as the accounts payable clerk. I'm excited to be here and further my career with the city of Manistee.
What's your background?
So I have a degree in accounting from Baker College. I've worked in the financial industry at a credit union. I've worked as office manager in a construction company, kind of doing lots of office, related tasks and
Good deal. Welcome aboard.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Laura's going to serve as the accounts payable clerk and accountant in our department. Yes. And she's going to head back 'cause she has kids. Thanks, Laura.
Consideration of authorizing an agreement with Associated Government Services, Inc., AGS, for trades inspection services. Safe Built will cease to provide inspection services for the city on August 23rd, 2023. The city is currently in the process of accepting applications for the city building official. This position will be responsible for building and rental inspections. The city is also required to provide trades inspections under the current city ordinance. City staff has explored several options for this service and has found AGS to be the best option. At this time, council could take action to authorize the agreement with the Associated Government Services, Inc. for trade inspection services, allowing the city manager to execute the documents.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question. So this says for the trades inspection, do we anticipate, not knowing what that market looks like, that we're gonna get and be able to fill the position for a building inspector by the August deadline?
So we have applications in, and we have them due at the end of the week. So we do have some applicants to interview. We are having an option in this contract too to provide building official services if needed. So it's going to be a backup if that person's on vacation if we need it.
Okay, that was my question on that. Thank you.
What's the cost look like in comparison to what we were paying Safe Built?
That's a good question. I'd like to bring up Bert. We looked at the Safe Built model, Bert's with AGS. Their residential and commercial, it was less complicated with AGS, so we think it's going to be very comparable and actually less complicated, and which will be nice for the residents.
Hello, my name's Bert Gale with Associated Government Services, and maybe I can field that question. We were incorporated back in 1989, and it only took about a year for us to figure out that an awful lot of residential applications that were coming in were very complicated for contractors and others, especially contractors, when they were trying to bid jobs. So what we did from a residential standpoint, that's for 1 and 2 family dwellings, is we just made flat fees. So it doesn't matter. It takes the same amount of work to inspect a house, whether, quite frankly, if it's a 3,000 square foot house or if it's a 5,000 square foot house, it's the same number of inspections, same amount of processing. So we just turned it all into a flat fee so that it made it really easy for contractors to bid jobs. It didn't matter what the size of a brand new house is, it's the same fee. So now everybody's kind of on the same level playing field, if you will. They don't have to try to figure it out by itemizing the application and to see how many circuits are we going to have electrically and what do I got to put in there for the fireplace. All that went away because we made flat fees. We still ask them to itemize what they're doing, but it's a flat fee every single time. So on our trade applications, we tried to simplify it for residential type permits. Commercial permits, you can't really do that because it's a mix. You don't know if you're going to get a Dollar General. We've all seen those, right? You don't know if you're going to get a Dollar General or if you're going to get a machine shop or a place of assembly. You don't know what you're going to get. So you can't really do that from a commercial standpoint. So did that answer your question?
What's the set fee?
I'm sorry.
What's the set fee?
It depends on the project. So let me go to the fee schedule. Did they get the
They do
fee
have it.
schedule?
We'll pull it up too for them to see.
Okay.
That's the old
Oh,
Safe
that's
Built
the
one.
old one, sorry.
Okay.
Which one is it?
So, as an example for electrical, okay? So electrical, if they only needed to have 1 inspection, we have a single inspection permit fee of $80. That would also be true of, say, a service upgrade. They really only need 1 inspection, right? So it's an $80 permit fee. If it's an addition and remodel, typically that's going to be a rough-in and a final inspection. So that's 2 inspections, so that's 2 times 80, that's $160.
And Bert, that's it, correct?
Oh, you have it up there, thank you. And so that's sort of how we laid our flat fees out. It really depends on how many inspections are required for that project.
So I have a question. When we were talking about the previous building contractor we went with for that, it seemed like there was a lot of questioning on like if they had to come back. So like you went and did an inspection and there was an area of concern and you had to go back. People felt like, if I recall correctly, like they were getting nickeled and dimed like each time. How does that work in your organization? Because I'm reading it as like 2 inspections. So if you came out and inspected my property and it wasn't up to where it needed to be, and you had to come back, like if you made the recommendation you need to do A, B, and C, and then we'll come back, you're gonna get charged again, correct?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So let's just say that it was the addition remodel, all right, and you were afforded up to 2 inspections. That means that you're required to have a rough-in and a final. So now let's just, for a hypothetical, say you didn't pass the rough-in, right, for whatever the reason might be. Well, now we have to come back and do another inspection in order to get your rough-in approved. That would require a re-inspection fee. Okay? But you'd still have 1 inspection left, so you could still get your final, right?
Right.
The project can still go through completion.
Gotcha.
Did that help?
That answered my
Yeah.
question. And this seems really easy to read, so I'm assuming that this would be available to residents.
I'm going to suggest that assuming that you approve us tonight, I will create the permit applications, which will have something that looks very, very close to that. And then I suggest that that gets put on your website so that, and I suggest that you have some copies here, so if somebody walks through the door, they can get one too, right? So that it's very easily accessible.
Yeah, thank you.
The roofers have complained about inspection fees. I didn't see a specific for Bob Roofing wants to put a roof on a house. Is there an inspection fee for that, a permit for that?
So that wouldn't be a trade permit, that would be a building permit. But I can tell you that when we do the building aspect of it, we really got to ask enough questions to figure out if it's a building permit or not, okay? If you're replacing sheathing, trusses, framing members, structural members, that's going to be a building permit each time. If you're doing as simple as maybe just replacing some shingles, we have created a system we call maintenance permits. And we don't even charge for that, it's a zero fee. But it's a way to track it, right? And early on, we discovered, like again, I'm dating myself, back in the 90s, we would get these phone calls, right? Did you know that this was going on at this address? So what would be the first response? Well, we would have an inspector go out and take a look, only to discover that they don't even need a permit for this. So we developed this maintenance permit program so that we could get the maintenance permit, we could get it in the database. Now when the phone call comes in, did you know this was going on at this address? We just pull it up in the database and say, oh yeah, we can see that they're just re-siding the house, and they do have a maintenance permit. And that satisfied the caller and made it so we didn't have to scramble an inspector either.
Anybody else?
And if I may, I wanted to show the current inspection schedule. If you go to that other, go to the,
Close
what's
this
in the
out.
drive. Yeah, current
Is there a fee for the city?
and you scroll down.
I'm sorry.
Is there a fee for the city for the contract?
Well, my recommendation to your city manager is to determine what a markup should be from our fee schedule so that the city can retain some monies up from our fees, from the permit when it comes in for associated overhead and cost. Because you will have somebody's got to, well, they look at our bill when it comes, right? That's not free. Somebody needs to receive the permit applications and get them to us. Well, that's not free. So somehow you need to recoup your cost. So we talked about that very thing with the city manager.
So we will be doing a little bit more processing than we did with Safe Built, so it's going to require some staff time. So we'll be looking at, whether it's, I think we're probably 10% fee on that, but I'll be working with Ed to figure that out over the next, assuming it passes, we'll be working on that during this transition period. I just wanted to point out in our schedule of fees, this is an electrical inspection, so you can see how it's more complicated than kind of the simple fee schedule that AGS has, which I think people will appreciate.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Heather, would you please take roll?
Councilmember Bachmann.
Yes?
Councilmember Beaton.
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan. Councilmember Pratt.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grabowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Consideration of addendum to purchase agreement relative to City of Manistee Brownfield Redevelopment Authority Development and Reimbursement Agreement. North Channel Investors LLC is entitled to Brownfield Tax Increment Financing reimbursement under the terms of a development agreement. They intended to create condominium units in the North Channel building. This addendum clarifies that North Channel Investors LLC will continue to receive these payments after they sell the condominiums in the building. At this time, council could take action to approve the addendum to purchase agreement relative to the City of Manistee Brownfield Redevelopment Authority Development and Reimbursement Agreement. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Support.
Any discussion?
Now, are all of the apartments above the North Channel, are they going to be all condos at that point? Is that how I'm?
I don't know the answer to that. I believe that is the case,
Okay.
but I'm not certain of that.
And Ed couldn't be here, but the ownership structure is changing, but to what degree, I'm not certain.
Okay.
What's the public infrastructure it mentions? Is significant public infrastructure? It said developer intends to complete renovate North Channel building as well as significant public infrastructure. I'm curious what that is.
I can say that with regard to the agreement, the infrastructure costs that, well, maybe Jeff knows.
I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, but I know when the project was completed, we included the 6th Avenue pump station improvements, the sewer line that was adjacent along the river, some of the seawall, and then actually the retaining wall that's behind that building that holds up Short Street was paid for by the developer and is currently owned by the city. And then there's also water main loop on the property as well.
And so just so we're clear, the idea here is that the developer has incurred these costs and was going to get them reimbursed through the brownfield.
Yeah, I misread that. I thought it was future infrastructure improvement. We're talking about prior.
I think it's past infrastructure, but it'll be future reimbursement.
That's what it said.
And since they incurred the cost and are entitled to the reimbursement, the problem was that under the brownfield plan, the owner was entitled to the reimbursement. Well, now the owner will be someone else. And so all we're doing is saying, well, the reimbursement should go back to this developer.
Okay.
The original developer, Georgia?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Anybody else? Heather, would you please take roll?
Councilmember Bachmann.
Yes.
Councilmember Beaton.
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilmember Pratt.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grabowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Consideration of zoning ordinance Z 23-03. Zoning ordinance Z 23-03 would amend the zoning ordinance to remove the requirement of parking for residential use condominiums in the C3 district under Article 5, Section 514.8H of the City of Manistee zoning ordinance. The Planning Commission voted to recommend approval of this amendment on their July 6, 2023 regular meeting. As an ordinance, 2 separate readings are required. If this ordinance is introduced at this time, it could be adopted at the next regular meeting. At this time, council will take action to introduce zoning ordinance Z 23-3. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Support.
Any discussion? Heather, would you please take roll?
Councilmember Bachmann.
Yes.
Councilmember Beaton.
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan. Councilmember Pratt.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grabowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac. Yes. Motion approved.
Thank you. Consideration of temporary activity permit for garage sales at 291 First Street. The property addressed as 291 First Street is seeking a temporary activity permit to utilize the property for garage sales more than 3-day allowance in a 90-day period per section 522 of the City of Manistee zoning ordinance. At this time, council could take action to approve the request for a temporary activity permit for garage sales at 291 First Street. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
So clarify then, so they can do more than 3 days, but doesn't let, they could do a whole 90 days if they wanted to run the whole 90 days? It's pretty much been a garage sale up there for the last.
So George pointed out there were restrictions on the last one to a certain degree, so I would think you'd have if you're going to allow it, you should place a restriction on the amount and the time frame.
What are the restrictions on it?
The last, I noticed this before the meeting, the last granting of this request said 1 sale per weekend, per month, and only during the summer months. And then also that the property owners would, it's as long as there's no traffic issue as well. So those were conditions that were placed on it last time. It would seem reasonable that you'd want those same conditions here.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable too. When does it go from being a garage sale to being just a home business, really? Because it's been there for, I mean, I support the guy doing his business, but it seems like it's
Perennial sale.
it's beyond a garage sale. It's more like a home-based business, a resale. When does that change? Is there a definition difference that says it's definitely different?
Well, I mean, with respect to the zoning ordinance, if you want to have more than 3, then you're going to need council approval on it. And that's what we're here, hearing from them today, so. But right now, our motion, what my concern was, the motion as made does not include these restrictions. And if you're going to pass this, I was concerned that now there, as Councilmember Bachmann points out, there's nothing stopping the person from having it every day for the next 90 days. So, you know, placing that restriction on for the summer months, once per weekend, per month.
Well, I make a motion to amend my original motion to cover those provisions to limit the scope.
I'll second that.
Well, I disagree with even giving them a permit. I mean, they've had sales all summer for the last few years, and I just don't agree with this thing.
I think part of the issue too is they have a lot of stuff out in front of the house all the time, so
Yep.
it just looks like there's a sale going on all the time. Nothing gets put away, doesn't get cleaned up.
I mean, it looks terrible.
I suppose that maybe Councilmember Bachmann had intended his motion to include that they not leave the items out for sale beyond the day of sale.
I'm gonna make a motion, because that's the last time I had to do this over and over again. So, we're gonna amend the motion to add the provisions as we listed, no more than 3 days, right?
No more than 1 day per weekend, per month for the summer month, or for the, was it April through October?
Sales are not happening, he has to remove the
Was
stuff
one day
from the yard so it doesn't look blighted,
It
basically.
was one weekend a month.
1 weekend per month, 1 weekend day per month,
Oh, weekend
April to
day.
September.
What does the ordinance now state?
The ordinance says that if you are more than 3 days per 90 days, you're not permitted to go beyond 3 days in every 90 days.
Okay. Every 90 days. Thank you.
If I could add to that, I was just thinking about this with the previous stipulation. I think it was for the entire weekend, because if we gave him 1 day per month, then that is 3 days in 90 days. So I think the intent of this was like an entire weekend for 1 sale a month. But I just wanted to make sure that was clear. And then for a home occupation, that is identified in the zoning ordinance, but generally they are to be contained completely indoors, and it's not supposed to have the appearance that, you know, that business exists in your home. So this would not fit into that use of the zoning ordinance. I wanted to make sure that was clear. Yep.
So maybe we can recap this motion.
Can I ask a
So-
question before we recap it? Is it just, like, how long does this permit, how long is
It's
it?
for this season from, well, in fact, this was April to September, but it's going to be just through September of this.
It can
this
be
year.
for up to 6 months.
So if we voted this down, they have to bring it back next year, because, I mean, they can have a garage sale next month.
Yeah, they
And then-
could still have 1 day of garage sales a
Okay.
month under the, what's provided.
But depending on, I don't know what they've had in the last.
True, in the last
60
90 days, yeah, it'd have to be another, you know,
Okay.
surpass whatever they've done in the past 90 days.
Okay. Thank you.
So have they gotten a permit in the past?
I
Like at this property, have they gotten a permit?
In
Yes.
2021, it was brought before council, so it looks like this was brought before council in July of 2021, but they had kind of like highlighted, you know, the summer months.
So
on
then they
that
just
permit.
stopped coming for,
Yeah, they did
approval?
not come last year for the approval. I think that there was a little bit of misunderstanding with the property owner, because they did get like a business registration, not through the city, but through the county, that was valid through like 26, I believe, and the property owner is here if you wanted him to speak more on that. But I think that's where the confusion came into play. He, you know, misunderstood that this was not the same timeline of approval as some other registration
Okay.
he had obtained.
okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions? Good, okay.
I don't know where we're at, though, I don't know.
Well, we've got a motion to amend, and the motion to amend would be to place restrictions on the temporary permit, which would say that it's allowed 1 weekend per month through September of 2023, and that the items that are for sale would need to be removed other than the days that they are being sold, other than those days.
Could you take roll on that?
Yes, so on the amended motion, Councilmember Bachmann,
Yes.
Councilmember Beaton,
Yes,
Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilmember Pratt,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grabowski,
Yes.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
Yes.
Motion approved. Now, on the original motion as amended, Councilmember Bachmann,
Yes.
Councilmember Beaton,
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilmember Pratt,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grabowski,
Yes.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Now I don't know where I'm at. Hold on a second. Thank you. Now we will have a report from Mr. Bruce Banks from the Utility Department.
You sit down here, I'll take it through.
Perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll bring it up here in just a second. Oh, don't want that. Let's see here.
Oh no. I can do this by heart if we don't need.
There we
Okay.
go. No, we're good. We're good.
Yeah. Anyways, hey, I'm Bruce with the Water Department, and I'm here to give the annual report to council. Our water department staff, as of last week, was Katie Trevisano with 2 years of service, Sean Taylor with 12, James Riley with 9, and myself, I've been here 22 years now. And we pump water, obviously, you know, you guys want it to run or to flow when you open it and flush down when you flush it. So, but what we do is we pump water, and last fiscal year, or last monthly year, we did 289 million gallons. And then every day we read water meters in our service truck. We read them 5 days a week, and we're actually over 4,200 meters we collect every day, and that goes to Kaylee, which she collects and then has a nice database of what's usage for people that are calling. And we also maintain over 440, it's actually about 450 fire hydrants now. We try to flush most of them twice a year, and then periodically through the year, sometimes in the winter, more during the summer months when it's hot, and try to get that fresh water coming from the ground. But we try to get everyone at least exercised once a year. We do have a valve exercising program. I've always had problems getting this accomplished because I have other things to do. But we do, and we do keep track of those through our ArcGIS program. And there are interconnect valves with Filer City. One is at 15th and Maywood, as you can see the tower, the old tower in the back. And the other one is at Main Street, that's south of Forest Avenue. Those are closed in the off position, but connected to Filer City's water system in case there were ever an emergency on either side. So we could support them, they could support us. We do exercise those, that's required by the state. On a daily basis, 5 days a week, we're doing everything you could see. Everything, turn-offs, turn-ons, MISTIGs, high bill investigations, repairing meters, water quality issues, a lot of sampling. Chemical addition is done 6 days a week. Record keeping, maintenance, and then, of course, the after-hours alarms and service calls. The quality assurance, we do, like I said, 6 days a week. We're checking for chlorine, phosphate injection, and fluoride in the system at the wells and the distribution system also. There is a cross-connection program we run. This is to avoid a back contamination from a vacuum or a negative pressure, and that would say a boiler system. Somebody has a boiler system in their house, and there's a water main break out front, so all of a sudden pressure went to zero. With that boiler system, some of them are treated with a very harsh chemical. You don't want that harsh chemical going back into the system. So that's what those RPZs and double check valves and everything there pictured is for, and I check those. The annual water quality report, which is done once a year, required by the state. They are already handed out for the year. The new ones are down at the front desk, and they're all over the city, from the hospital to the courthouse, the library, visitor center, chamber, City Garage, and everybody's can come get them, look at them, read them. We do have an active wellhead protection area around our well houses, south of the, or by the high school, and then out by the airport at our well 10. This is to keep our water safe, to creating public awareness and education on how to keep your water safe. And as you guys have heard before, I've said this every year I've done this. When I was a kid, my neighbor, I lived on a dirt road, he was old and I was 8. He used to change the oil in his tractor and he'd tell me to go dump it on the dirt road to keep the dust down. And I did it for him. And now I do this and I say, don't do that. But that's how things work. Our lead and copper sampling, as you recall a couple years ago, was a hit by chance. But this past year, 2022, we did 2 sets of 40 samples, collected each half of the 2022. The action level for lead is 15 parts per billion. Our highest result between all 80 samples was 6 parts per billion. And basically the same with copper. The action level is 1.3 parts per million. Our highest result between 80 samples was 0.76 parts per million. So we're well under. We're back to our normal sampling program now, and everything's golden. We do WQP sampling, which is water quality permit sampling. That includes some conductivity, alkalinity, a phosphate. Put it in, just turn that off. A chloride, sulfate, and we do that every 2 weeks, and that is included in our MOR. We obviously do water main repair. We have over 53 miles of water main in the city. The last 5 weeks, 6 weeks now, we've done a lot of water main repair, and that was partially due to the water tower, mostly due to the water tower being down. This is the finished product of that same, that's James cutting that pipe out there. And the finished product is a new pipe in there with 2 couplings on each side. It's very time consuming, strenuous, expensive repair. But related to that is we had our 1-year inspection for both water towers being painted from last year. The Maywood Tower had to be drained because they had to get inside to see what the paint looked inside, because it was a total inside inspection because it was painted inside last year. The industrial tower is painted on the outside, so they did not have to be drained, and that one passed with flying colors. Anyways, the Maywood, when we shut that down, it just so happened the prison's pumping system into their water tower malfunctioned, and it was turning on and off at high speeds, and we only had 1 tower in service. So you had a lot of water going 8 miles that way, and then all of a sudden, not a lot of water. And then a lot of water, not a lot. And you do that 3 times, and then that's what happened in early June. And we had, I think we're up to 8 main breaks now from that. The Maywood Tower did have something that needed to be done. As you see, that's my hand next to a hole that was coming through. That's right at the base of the tower. So we kept the tower off for a couple extra days so a welding company could come into town, scratch that out, repaint it, epoxy it, whatever they had to do, and then hopefully it's good to go, because it was eaten inside out, and that would have actually been about 1.5 inch hole about this winter. And then what do you do?
And that was a warranty item.
Thank you, Jeff. Warranty item, yes. Another thing that we're currently doing, this is an ongoing thing, it's been ongoing and it seems like it never ends, is our service line pilot program. We're trying to figure out every material of service line in the city of all 3,300 connections. We did all the easy ones. We're at 2,400 right now. And now we're to the ones that are real difficult, like the ones that are in driveways that have concrete in them, or the ones that we just can't get to because there's a tree there. But the completion date is the end of next year. Once this completes, we'll compile our data, and then we do Spicer, actually Lucas, will be doing something, put together the approximate percentages of each one of galvanized, of HDPE, of copper, and then incorporate the ones we don't know and average that out, and that's what we have. But we'll keep moving forward to identify those as time goes forward, obviously. Our fire hydrant replacement program is always ongoing. That new hydrant at the bottom is at East Jordan. That is at 9th and Davis. We just did that one because of a fire across the street when his chicken coop caught on fire. We did have obviously the Quincy and Cleveland Street upgrades that finished up this spring. It has all new water main, fire hydrants, and all new service lines to every house. And we did the 7th Street and Ramsdale upgrades. It's the same thing, new water mains, fire hydrants, service lines. So those, technically, you wouldn't have to worry about them for 150 years. I'm going to talk about the wells real quick. This past winter, we had a well 9 rehab going on. The screen was about 95% plugged. It was pulling sand. It was heating up. So we pulled that, cleaned it. The motor's fine. Was putting it back online. And prior to us opening that up, we were one sample away from opening up the system. I noticed something on SCADA. And it was coming from the industrial tower, and it was jumping a couple feet. And I'm like, that makes 0 sense to me. So me and James drove out there, and the middle picture, you see, or the picture in the center, I should say, is a submersible well. That's well 10. It's a big well. It's bigger than what you think. Okay, it's size of a huge snapping turtle. And there's water pouring off the top. And so the check valve went bad there. So we had to immediately, to stop that water from flowing out the top of the well, where there's 440 electrical, we had to shut off the valve out in the airport by the tarmac. And then well 10 is obviously out of service right now. Well 9's not back online yet. And that weekend is when we had a communication issue, and we were actually down to one well for a day, and it was very frightening. But so well 9 went back online. It was real good. Well 10, they pulled it because they had to come out there to see what's wrong. The crew was already here for well 9. They went out there, they pulled it all up, 330 feet, and they found the check valve was bad, had to replace one pipe. It's a submersible well, so you got a motor that's taller than I am, well, that tall, and it's I don't even know how much it weighs, to be truthful, but it's by Hitachi, and it has to go to Texas to be inspected. And they suggested, well, while it's down, you might as well have the motor inspected and gone through, because if you have to do that anyways, you got to pull everything. So we had it inspected. They suggested having it be rebuilt. They couldn't guarantee it working if they had to reinstall it. So we had it rebuilt, and everything else is fine with that well. And it's scheduled to be shipped back from Texas July 31st. So I'm expecting it here August 10th, hopefully, and then we'll get that well back in service. Is there any questions? That's it.
Was it a stressful year, Bruce?
It's been a stressful month and a half. Yeah. First I'm worried about the water towers, and then you get the call.
Oh, good job.
Bruce mentioned the First Street loop.
Oh, I'm sorry. It totally slipped my mind. I had 2 things I wanted to talk to other than what was in there. We finalized the First Street loop from Lakeshore to Harbor Drive. It passed inspection, obviously. Made the final connection this morning on each end. And we flushed it, opened both valves up, flushed it both ways. Harbor Drive has had, I'm going to call it questionable water quality, because they won't have a chlorine residual by the end of the drive. But if there was ever a fire flow situation on the end of that drive, it'd have been hard to put out. We'd have had problems with that. So now I opened up that final hydrant, and I didn't do a flow test on it yet, but it was, I don't know if you guys can picture that. I don't know you can. There's a dune back of it. behind the maple tree. It was blowing past the maple tree into the dune. So there's lots of water there, and that really makes me happy. Because now they got good water. They're gonna have a constant flow instead of stagnant water. You don't want that. Water's old after 6 days, if you guys didn't know that. The second thing I did today, we started Spruce Street Hill. Finally, we're finally putting that back together. We got the parts. We had the manpower today. So we got 300 Spruce Street is the gentleman. I don't know his name. We got him water coming from the north off of where Second and Spruce meet. He's got full pressure now. He's good to go. Actually, we found when we dug down there today, we found really good pipe, which is not what we found at the top of the hill. And we'll discuss what we're going to do between his house and the top of the hill later on, because that's an expensive item. But yeah, those were 2 things accomplished today, and it's good. It headed in the right direction.
Anybody else? Thanks,
Good,
Bruce.
thanks. Yeah.
Now we'll have an update.
We still have the wastewater.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
We have water now, we have sewer.
Rick always does clean up.
I
Always
didn't
have.
mean to forget you.
Oh, yes, I wasn't mentioned in the program. Okay, my name's Rick Moore, and I'm Deputy Director of Public Works. And my main focus has been the wastewater treatment plant since I've been here. And it's no longer called the wastewater treatment plant, by the way. It's a clean water recovery facility. So I've got the annual report for that tonight, and we will get started with it. Which way do we go?
Go down.
This way. Okay, well, there's an aerial photo of the plant after the construction was completed. The only bad thing about the photo is that it was taken before the pavement was put in. But that is really the campus, what it looks like today, and is greatly enlarged over what it was just about 2 years ago. Okay, last year we treated a total of 404 million gallons throughout the year, and that equaled 1,110,000 gallons per day. The treatment plant has a rated capacity of 1.3 million gallons a day. Maximum operating capacity is 2.3 million gallons a day. So I looked at our records for the last 6 months today, and we've been running about 1.26 million since the first of the year. So the flow's been up a little bit. But however, the last 2 months with the dryness and so forth, we've been under 1 million, but on average for the 6 months, we're approaching the 1.3. So in the last 5 years, this graph shows that in 2018, we ran 439 million through the plant. And then in 2019, 603 million, 2020, 512, 2021, 385, and then as I mentioned last year, 404. The high peaks for 2019 and 20 are related to the lake when it was so high. For a while, there was quite a while, we were running water actually back into our system. We were treating about 1 million gallons a day. And that water was entering at the corner of 5th and Ramshill, where our SSO overflow actually is. The water was running back into our system. So we couldn't allow that to continue, so we raised the weir at 5th and Ramsdale 8 inches, and that stopped the water from coming in. But it really affected the total number of gallons that we ran that year and then part of 20. Plant performance has been really good. The BOD, we removed 97% of the BOD came in, suspended solids 92%. Phosphorus 82%, and ammonia nitrogen 97%. The plant is staffed 7 days a week, working 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday. Then on the weekends, we work minimal hours to do required lab tests. We take readings, we make some plant adjustments and so forth. And we also operate and maintain 14 pump stations, lift stations throughout the entire system. That includes the one over at Filer Township. That's the one that serves the old Kmart building complex there. We operate a large assortment of pumps, mixers, and blowers in the plant and throughout the collection system. And with the new Headworks building that went into, there are a great number of additional pumps and so forth that we maintain. So it keeps us very busy with everything going on. Operate and maintain all the processes and equipment at the plant, including grounds and facilities maintenance. Staff, of course, myself, I've been here 8 years. I've been around since Marmaduke was a pup, doing this type of work, 49 years. And then Lee Miller's been with us for a little over 3 years. Jacob Mottler and Jason Kaminsky been with us a little over a year. Laboratory analysis, we have 8 tests in our permit that are mandated by EPA and EGLE. And all the tests that we do meet standard methods and standard methods that are set by EGLE and EPA. The SOPs, or standard operating procedures, have been written for each of the tests that we do, and that's been a really good thing because that ensures consistency with the staff doing the testing. Being we've had considerable amount of turnover in staffing in the last few years, it's been great to have these SOPs where the employees are all trained on the same thing, everything is consistently done, and we're ensured good quality testing. We are also a certified laboratory for drinking water. We did 148 water analysis last year. Most of those were for Bruce and the water department. And it's a real advantage to the city for us to be certified, because when Bruce or anyone in the water department brings down a water sample, we can let them know the results in 24 hours. If they sent those results or those tests out to another lab like Lansing Health Department, it takes a number of days to get the results back. So it's a good thing for us to be certified for that. We also analyze water samples for the public. If anyone out there has a well, if they have a cottage, or they want water tested, we can do that for a nominal fee and have the results for them in 24 hours. PMP for total mercury pollutant minimization program. In our NPDES permit, we have a goal. We don't have a permit limit, but we have a goal. They want us to shoot for less than 1.3 nanograms per liter. That's parts per trillion with a T. And the average for last year, 22, was 0.77 parts per trillion, compared to 0.88 in 2021. So that's a 12.5% decrease in the amount of mercury that we discharged out to the lake. So that's a really good thing for us. PFAS and PFOA, we had our effluent, our biosolids tested for PFAS, PFOA. All test results came back very close to non-detect. None of them came back requiring any kind of action. So we're in very good shape for the PFAS and the PFOA, and basically we have very little to none coming into the system. We're in very good shape. O&M program, we have a formal maintenance program out there. It helps us keep track of all the maintenance duties, as well as assets and replacement of equipment and so forth. Plant pump stations are broken down into various segments, which means all the equipment in the plant and pump stations are maintained either on a weekly basis, monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, annual basis, but everything is maintained on a regular basis and documented what's going on. Land application of biosolids. We do produce quite a bit of biosolids. Sludge was the old term. In the plant, we land applied 1,190,000 gallons of biosolids last year, over 60 acres of farm property. Property that we use is located south of town. We do have a section a little bit north of the casino area too, but those are the two primary properties that we use. Yeah, the biosolids is a really good nutrient product. It's got a good soil value, or it's a good soil conditioner. It's got great value. We gave the farmer 207 pounds of nitrogen on every acre that we applied, and we gave them also 269 pounds of phosphorus for every acre we land applied on. Question I've had so many times, well, do the farmers pay for that? No, they don't pay for it. We've got to get rid of it. And they get a product, as long as they pay attention to what we put on and they cut back on their commercial fertilizers, they're doing really good. But we have a product we have to get rid of, and nobody in the state can sell their sludge. It's something that we have to deal with and get rid of, and that's what we do. But it's a good program, and this is just a photo of what the process looks like. We got a tractor pulling a nurse vehicle, and the knives in the back, land applier inject the sludge about 10 inches below surface, and then it's covered up right away, and it's all done with. Sanitary sewer overflows. Should be the last time this one is probably in this in a program, in a report like this. SSO 18 that we had on the corner of 5th and Ramsdale no longer exists, was completely removed with the construction that took place a year ago. But before that took place, we did have 5 overflows compared to 3 the previous year. And the overflows totaled 3.5 million gallons compared to a little over 3 million discharged in 2021. So since August 22, when the retention tanks went in service, 0 gallons have been overflowed to the lake. So it's a great thing. The tanks are doing their job, and that's really great for Manistee. The tanks have been used 3 times to date, and we captured a total of 1.224 million gallons and returned it to the plant for treatment, so none of it went to the lake untreated. So the first time we used the tanks, the first tank, we put 576,000 gallons in that tank. Now keep in mind that those tanks will hold 2 million gallons each. So that one tank, it received about 25% of its capacity. So it'll take a real major flow in the future, a real major rain, I should say, in order to really fill all 3 tanks. But the tanks are there, they're doing a great job, and it's good to see. Projects that we planned for this budget year, 23-24. We're going to replace this ferric tank. This is just a 55-gallon drum. You can see it really looks bad. It's in bad shape, but the tank only holds roughly, we can get 50 gallons out of it. Sometimes during certain flows, that's not enough ferric for us to feed for the flows. And so what we plan to do is replace it with a tank similar to this one here. That'll hold 150 gallons. It's a fiberglass tank, and that will replace that 55-gallon drum. Then we have 3 samplers for the laboratory. These, I think, are the originals from the 1978 era, and they are giving us some issues. They can't be repaired anymore. They're just ready for replacement. Primary tanks, these tanks are going to be renovated later this summer. We did budget for the renovation on these, and it's a good thing that we did because we had a bearing failure on the left tank there. And when that tank failed, it caused the chain drive to kind of cock a little bit and started shearing pins. And so that tank is out of service right now, and we're going out for quotes to have the work done. And we're going to do both tanks, being there, might as well do them both. They're both the same age. So I'm hoping that by hopefully September, that they will be done. End of September, I expect 3 months for these tanks to be out of service. So a question has been, well, if we have a high flow, what do we do? Is it going to affect our treatment? Well, until they work on the tank, if that happened tonight, that tank on the left is ready to go in service, and we can use it for storage. And then once the flows go back down, we'll just drain it, and it'll act like one of the large retention tanks. But we can use it if we need to. Next item, we have a Sweetenham pump station that needs a generator. We have quite a few power issues out here at that station, and that generator will help to alleviate a lot of those issues that we have with that station. Then lastly, we have a platform replacement between the digestive building and the secondary digester. That platform is caving in, falling, and it's dangerous. And so the guys have already removed it, and we're in the process of rebuilding the new one in place of it. And then public education, last thing I'll mention is that we had, of course, an open house that took place on May 18th. And approximately 75 people attended the open house. It was a really good time for people to be out there. I gave personally 4 tours, I think. And Spicer Group gave a number of tours also. And it was a good time for people. We had, I remember one group that was in my tour was 2 families that had, they were homeschooled, and they brought their families out, the kids, and they went through on the tour. It was a good educational time for them to go through. But I believe that education is really important. It's an important tool to keep the public informed of what's going on at the plant and also in the community. So if anyone here has not had a tour, or anyone watching online, if they would like a tour, feel free to call us at the plant. We love giving tours to show off what we have, and that'll be the end of it. So at any rate, I have questions. If anybody has a question for me, feel free.
Where's the mercury come from?
The mercury generally in the past came from dental offices. And the dental offices have all been required to put amalgam separators in and so forth. So when that all took place years ago, before I came here, that really took care of everything. So we have literally just nothing coming in. Yeah. Anybody? All right, thank you.
Are we good to move on to, nobody else? Okay. Now we have an update from Manistee County Land Bank House demolition, from Manistee County Treasurer Rachel Nelson.
Good evening. The last time I was here, we still needed snowsuits because it was January, so it's time for an update. Just want to give you a little bit of timeline on these projects from the past coming up to now, and then what we're looking at for the future. If you recall, the city in January approved the transfer of 2 properties that the city owned to the land bank with the intention that those properties were going to be part of our blight elimination grant application that was submitted to the State Land Bank Authority. That grant application was due the end of January. And we got that all turned in, got everything awarded. The end of February, we got our award letter, but you couldn't spend any money until you actually got the signed grant agreement. Even though we knew we were all good to go, you can't spend any money yet. In March, there was a required training that I attended. April, we got the 2 quitclaim deeds actually recorded for those properties. And then we finally got our signed grant agreement from the state for our round 1 demolitions. We then discovered that the demolition contractors that are local don't necessarily have the license that is required by the state. We feel really strongly as a land bank about supporting local business, so rather than just hauling someone in from Grand Rapids or Detroit, we had some conversations. At least one of those contractors took the opportunity to actually go through the process, which is greatly appreciated. It's not an easy task. You know, you have training and classes that you have to attend, especially as you're heading into your busy season. The one contractor is now in the process. He's at the point where he just needs to go and actually take the test, which means actually going to Grand Rapids. But we kind of slowed down, pulled the reins back, and said, okay, let's just take some time to work with some locals, try to get that local business so that we can support a local demolition contractor, especially knowing that as we go forward as a land bank, we're going to have more business that we need done here in our county. So that is something we've been doing since April, since we got the actual signed grant agreement. We also found out that as a land bank, we needed to have our own procurement policy. This was something we, as a smaller land bank, we hadn't been doing too many large projects yet, so kind of just relying on the counties, but we are separate from the counties, so we needed to have our own procurement policy. We adopted a draft version in May and then had some changes made to that by our attorney. Adopted the last version just in June for the procurement policy. That then dictates how we put things out for bid, at what level we need to put things out for bid versus just getting a certain number of quotes and those kind of things. We also in June, after a lengthy process, which actually started back in November, working with the Manistee County Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. The 2 of us worked together to put out an RFP for a consultant because it makes a lot more sense. It's fiscally responsible and just avoids overlap with certain projects to have the same consultant. So we went through that process together. In June, we finally signed a contract and now have Fishbeck as our consultant. So that is also a huge help going forward as we're in the process of writing RFPs and grant management and all of that. So with that being said, the 2 properties, the ones that were owned by the city are 530 Davis. That one was a burned out shell. We found out that because that's a burnt out shell and you can't really test it, we just need to treat that entire thing as if it were asbestos. So that kind of changes how you do that demolition a little bit, which is not a big deal. 1001 Kosciuszko already had that study done, so we don't need to wait for the study. The 3rd piece of property that's privately owned that will also be demolished that was part of our round 1 funding is 616 Engelman. And so that one will be demolished as well. We do need to have an asbestos study done. Fishbeck is working on that. These will be done any day. The surveys will be done. For jumping ahead a little bit, for our round 2 application, those were due at the end of May. In the very end of June, we found out we were awarded our entire round 2 application, which not only got us our guaranteed $200,000, but surpassed it for a grand total between rounds 1 and 2 of $673,952, which is a huge win for our community and for our land bank. The one other property in the city that is now, because of round 2, is 305 First Street, which is the old DAV building. That will be coming down, and then the majority of that fund, not in the city, but still super exciting project, is that we will be funding the demolition of the old Kennedy School in Parkdale. That is under new ownership recently. There's a project in the works with a developer that is totally not related to the land bank. We're only handling the demolition portion of that. But we're really excited to get that property, which is certainly incredibly blighted at this point, beyond rehab potential. So we will be bringing that down, working with Fishbeck. The round 1 projects, those 3 buildings in the city from round 1, have to be completed by the end of December. We are well on target to have those done this fall. The hope is that also the round 2 projects will be completed in the fall as well. Certainly the DAV, it makes sense for those projects in the city. They're all relatively close. Those will probably get done very close timing to each other. I suspect we'll probably have one contractor that wants to do all of those together just because it makes sense. And then the Kennedy, we're hoping to get that done this fall as well. So right now, we're working with Fishbeck to get the asbestos surveys that we need done. The DAV building actually needs a Phase 1 environmental because it's technically a commercial property. So we're working on getting that done as well. Luckily for us, the old Kennedy School already had both those things done. So that was a cost savings, even though it is an incredibly expensive project to bring that down. So we're working on getting that done, getting those bids out, and hopefully by the end of December having not only round 1, which we're required to have done, but also the round 2 projects done as well, so that especially with that old Kennedy property, we can get that development on the way. We don't want to hold that up. But then for the city properties, just getting those gone, making way for any future plans. With the 2 that were owned by the city that are now owned by the land bank, the plan has always been, we've expressed to put some type of housing on that, and that is what the land bank will be exploring once those come down with the funding that we've received from the county for ARPA money. So that will be coming hopefully next year. We'll be starting plans for what's next for those 2 properties. Does anyone have any questions?
Where's the DAV building
The DAV building is, it's on First Street. It's kind of right across from the laundromat and behind Shell. It actually looks like, I'll be very honest, I thought it was connected to the other buildings that are right there. It's very close. I'm not even sure that a person could walk between the 2, but it is a separate building. So it's right there, kind of behind the Shell.
Is there enough room on Davis Street to put another house up?
That is a good question. We've been discussing that, and there's some question as to when certain timelines come into effect. You know, is it when we own it? Is it when the fire happened? There are some things, but if at all possible, we want to put housing there. If it's not housing, then we'll explore what other options are there. You know, is there someone local that wants to have beehives? Is there someone that wants to do community gardening? Is there, you know, what can we do if it can't be housing? But housing is our number 1. So we'd like to be able to work through that and hopefully be able to put housing there.
Good, I'm glad to see it getting cleaned up.
Yes, yes.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel.
Citizens comment. This is an opportunity for citizens in attendance to comment on municipal services, activities, or areas of city involvement limited to 5 minutes. Letters submitted to council will not be publicly read.
Hello, council. Sean Taylor, 240 10th Street. I got some photos here of the home behind me at 914 Davis, or Ramsdale. And I've been dealing with a blight problem for 20 years. It just is nonstop. Last week, they moved a trailer in. There's kids sleeping in it. There's 6 dogs, 11 people in the house. You can't park on the street. The new street, I don't know, 20 years old, is ruined from all the oil and grease, the backyard mechanics. The fence I put up is ruined. That's coming out of my pocket. The police have been there. I don't know if any tickets have been in the 20 years, but this has to stop. I can't take this anymore. I pay good money in taxes, and I just put $15,000 into the house last month, new siding, and it isn't getting any better. They just laugh at us. I don't know what more to do here, but tickets need to be wrote. There isn't, from the photos, the vehicles, there's no plates on them. If they are on them, they're not the original plates. Right now, if you go by dark, there's trailers with no plates. There's trailers upon trailers with no plates. And now I got the criminal element that's showing up there daily, that I'm just not gonna mention names, but I've had enough. I don't know what can be done, but I'd like my taxes this year credited. We'll just start there. Until it's done, I don't wanna pay taxes. I'm not saying that my house is the greatest, but we all know what crap looks like. This has gone on long enough. Dave, when he was a police officer, he knows. Josh Grubb has been by there. My boss, Mr. McCool, has been by there. They're hanging vehicles in the tree to replace bodies. I mean, we're the laughing stock over there. When people come to my house, that's the first thing they say. What is living to the north of you? There isn't a dog license. The people behind have complained. This is just, it's way out of hand. Something has to be done. And I don't like being here. I don't feel anything I do on my property should not affect my next door neighbor. So I'm very adamant when it does me, because this is about the comments I get when I get riled up. And I'm riled up off of this. And it isn't getting any better. If you go there right now, they're like water buffaloes wallowing out in lawn chairs. Something has to be done.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah.
No,
Sean, I was there the other day, I rode by, and there's a lady sleeping in a chair, kids are running all around. I don't know if that's a daycare or not.
There is a daycare being ran out of it right now. It's not a licensed daycare. I think Ms. Pontiac runs a licensed daycare. It's nothing like that. There's just, when I went to work this morning, I'm your bridge tender down there, there was a pile of diapers wadded up, thrown against the fence, and some young lady was dropping her kid off, and that was 6:30 this morning. And this goes on all day long, just constant. And they're like vampires. If anything's gonna come in, a new vehicle or whatever, they wait till 11 o'clock or so, and then they start moving the stuff, and they're, on them pictures, if you'll see, they got gates. They put those up so they hide it. So if the police go over there and say, oh, this has to be cleaned up, they get rid of a little bit of it, they straighten up all the rest of the stuff behind them fences, them gates, and it just never goes away. And then in a couple of months, it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. So, but there is a daycare, like I said, that camper that came in there, pop up, there were 4 kids sleeping in it all night long when I came out to go to work. I don't think one of them was over 6. And they were in it all night long without a grown-up in there.
Because have they gone over there to the police to check on that place?
Pretty sure they have. This is the first I've heard from this, so one thing is we start with the police.
I'm aware of this. This is only a couple blocks from me.
Yep.
It is pretty.
And if you see it, I've got, I put a lot of money again in my house this year. I just re-sided it. Did that 25 years ago, and they've been there 22 years. When Chief Bachman was there, we had the same problems. I think you've been over there with the guys. I think you were here when they hung the car or the truck in the tree. Kids running around in diapers, and it's unbelievable where this where this has gone, and that isn't what we are here. I mean, I clean up my yard, and I'm not here to pass judgment, but that is not acceptable. And like I said, the other element that's coming there, it's not desirable either.
I know when I went through there the other day, they had trailers almost across the street, you could hardly get through.
Well, and going to the,
Sorry, I gotta cut you off.
Okay.
But we can't have like a discussion
Yep.
thing on it, but we will look into it, I promise.
thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Gamble?
Thank you, Mayor. And Sean, you have my number. I'm happy to go take a look at that, but feel free to always call me if you have something like that.
And I hope before it gets dark here after the council on that, go take a ride, because they're at their best right now.
And I just want to thank the water department too for all their hard work these last 2 months. I know when Jeff shows up at 9 a.m. on a Saturday at my house, I know it's not good news, and I know we had a lot going on, so I appreciate you guys working through it. And I think a lot of variables involved with the water main breaks. I think the good news is the prison's going to install a variable speed drive pump, which will help prevent some of this in the future. And I just wanted to acknowledge the Hampton Inn ribbon cutting today. The mayor was there. Councilwoman Martin Pontiac was there. It was a really nice event. They mentioned that less than a handful of Hampton Inns have a restaurant, and this one has 2. So it's a premier hotel. I think it's going to be utilized by residents year-round. It's really, really nice. They did a great job, so just want to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Other staff?
Just one update on the MDOT US 31 bridge project. As you know, that project's been in full detour now for over 2 weeks. The state has been listening to all of your comments. I listened to all your comments. I listened to all the public's comments. So we've been exchanging all that information. The first couple days of the detour, they had a traffic and safety engineer that was in Manistee watching each intersection, watching all the turn movements, all the pedestrian movements. They've adjusted the traffic signals to where they think it's optimized for the conditions. They did come back a week later and they installed a 4-way stop sign at Washington and Memorial Drive, 5th Avenue. That was pretty much demanded by the community. The result of that is it backed traffic up even worse south of the bridge. So that was removed this evening. Actually, it was gone when I came to the meeting. I attended the state's progress meeting, and they've been very receptive to listening to the concerns, very receptive to the community and the needs. So if you guys have issues, feel free to pass them on to Bill. I'll pass them on through the state, but they are listening and trying to be reactive to the community.
So it's gone back to no stop signs on Washington, but the 2 on 5th Avenue are going to stay?
Yes, the east and west stop signs are remaining the way that they used to be. The north-south ones are gone, and then there still remains a 4-way stop at Monroe Street.
I think it's been problematic for emergency response, especially between 2 and 4. It's just so backed up. I think this is probably a better situation, but either way we do it, people are gonna be inconvenienced to some degree, but this is probably a better safety outcome.
So Mayor Sullivan actually asked me the other day, what do I tell people? Everybody's asking. And if you watch people and if you drive through enough, because we're driving through multiple times a day, if you take advantage of the nodes, if you take advantage of the streetlights at First Street, Maple Street, even River Street, and then the 4-way stop at Monroe Street, if people enter that stream of traffic on the detour at one of those nodes, it makes it a lot easier. When people try to skip ahead a few blocks and then cut in, that tends to start, backing things up. Personally, I think about if I need to take a left-hand turn, I'm not going to stop and try to get onto 5th Avenue. I'm going to go a couple blocks ahead and go around. And I think people will kind of get the feel of that, and the traffic will adjust it, and it should get better after a few days.
When you're coming on First Street, Jeff, the semis coming, they almost try to turn that corner, and that's really a bad.
Yeah, and you, yeah, I'm sure each one of you has seen it. When a semi tries to go through there and then make a turn off of it, that really jams things up.
Second lane there.
But personally, I've noticed when you go, especially north of, or south of town, you get out on 31, it's amazing how less traffic there is. So the traffic that's still jammed up in town wants to be here. They're residents, or they're visiting, or doing, you know, commerce. But it looks like the majority of the traffic's taking the bypass around. And the county is having the same conversations. The county's had some issues. They've had the same recommendations or similar recommendations and concerns. So the state's been watching actually both of those detours and making adjustments.
What's the timeline again, Jeff? When's that open again?
This closure was up to 70 days, so it would be about mid-September. As of today, the contractor is on schedule. Thank you.
Mr. Pratt?
I just had a couple of things. The first one was, and I think you kind of touched on it, Jeff, so thank you, was about traffic. I guess I'm a little concerned though, and I don't know that there's any way to do it other than maybe just continue to educate people, because it seems like, kind of like you mentioned, people are trying to like cut down side streets, but people are blocking the side streets, so you can't even get through to go across. And you know, the other day, unfortunately, there was an accident on 2nd Street because somebody ran a yield, and luckily, you know, the police department and the fire department responded timely, but I happened to call it in because nobody had a cell phone, but I was questioning, like, what's the response time going to be? I was shocked it was as quick as it was, but it kind of made me question, like, if you needed an ambulance, not from the fire department, where are you going to stand right now? I'm getting, because with the traffic, sometimes there's no way an ambulance can get down a road. Like, there's nowhere for people to go. So I don't know what that looks like long term, if things don't, because I think some of it is people's intention, but some of it's just the way it is. Like, I don't think, some of it's out of our control. Like, it wouldn't matter how we set it up. But I don't know if we can put signs like don't block, kind of like we did like the no parking on 1st Street. Those signs, like if we can put those at, is there something we could put at intersections so that people aren't, because at some points in the day it's up past like 5th Street almost that people are waiting. I don't know.
Traffic engineer, but also.
I'm not either. I'm just saying, like, I
Part of
don't.
that problem is because of four-way stop. Once we put the four-way stop in there, traffic backed up to 31 and then backed
Yeah.
up south to 5th Street. So if we place that, we're going to continue to monitor, and hopefully alleviates that.
Okay.
Yeah, it does delay response a little bit. It delays a lot when the four-way stop was there.
Oh, yeah.
It took us 11 minutes to respond to domestic, and that's even trying to have police officers staged on both sides of the water, but you can never time that
Right.
perfectly. So my advice is let's take a look at what the four-way stop does as far as north and south traffic, and I think that's going to impact the east and west traffic. Doesn't, come back to the table and see, so.
Okay. All right, thank you. My other, I guess, and I think we've probably all battled this, and it's been a thing with council way before I got on, but like blight, I guess I feel like there's different degrees of blight that we're all talking about. Like, there's the person that's leaving some things out in their yard, but like the gentleman that spoke tonight and some of the experiences I've had with a rental that's no longer a rental next door to me, like, that's a whole nother level of blight. Like, when you're taking apart cars on the city street and you're doing that kind of stuff, I get that, and I get people fall on hard times and wanting to be sympathetic. I'm not saying like you just go after everybody, but if it's a continuation of a problem, I think we have to become more adamant about how we're handling some of this, because I mean, it's destroying people's property values. I mean, I came to council at one time years ago and mentioned I'd have to send my neighbor on vacation if I wanted to sell my house. That wasn't a joke. I guess I'm just saying, like, when do we start saying we're gonna ratchet up? I don't know that there's a simple solution for that, but people are getting frustrated. And I guess I'm wondering, at what point do we decide tickets are issued? Because that was a question I had with the property next door to me, and that went on for 5 years. And I don't know that a ticket was ever issued, and every time it was, well, he's on hard times. I get that, but when you're driving cars on your property and you live in the city, I mean, there's some things you expect in the country, but it's totally different when you live in the city and people are driving cars between a house and a fence. Like, that's not something you expect. So I guess I'd like to see us maybe look at how are we gonna take a stronger stance on blight, especially when it's repeated offenses or it's way out of control. That's it.
Thanks. Mr. Kowalski.
Josh, are we gonna do anything with that gentleman on Maple by 9th? Now he's repairing cars. Cars is up on Jack's. I know you guys have been there before.
We've issued multiple citations, and he's been held accountable for those. We keep enforcing it. That's all we can do. We can't kick a guy out of his house, right? So we've issued multiple citations. Last year, we wrote 40-some citations, which is unfortunately a record number of blight citations. But we have repeat offenders, from people who continue to work on cars to the people who have sofas in their right-of-way every week, so.
Well, he's running a business. He's trying, I mean, these cars don't belong to him, they're coming and going. And so that's running a business out of it.
So my message to you is we continue to do enforcement, write citations.
George, what can we do with this guy? I mean, if he doesn't pay the tickets or whatever.
I don't know what tickets have been issued. That's not been something that I've been handling, but, you know, I mean, our enforcement remedy is you issue a ticket, you hit them with a fine. If that doesn't solve it, then the court can order something to be addressed if that, you know, is the next step probably in these cases.
The tickets at all?
I don't know if he's paid the tickets. I think we've written a ticket every year. I mean, so we've issued citations. Yeah. Sometimes we avoid those when they remedy the problem, but then again, when the same person does the same thing over and over, you know, yeah. So we continue our enforcement efforts.
Are you still doing the monthly report of like each property and?
The problem with the monthly report is the software program that we use, it's very difficult to extrapolate that. Before I gave you a monthly report, it was from Excel spreadsheet. Now we use GIS, and our command staff it's challenging for them to extrapolate the data from that. We can put something together, just understand it takes hours of time from our patrol sergeants, so.
Is there a way you can do, because you still have like each officer has a district, right?
Correct.
Can you do like a summary of how many houses and just something real quick, just so?
Sure, how often would you like that? How frequent would you like that?
Monthly, I guess.
Okay.
Can we show on that too if they have received tickets?
It should be added in the notes.
Okay.
Our GIS system is a mapping system that has all of our contacts in it, so.
Anything else?
That's it. Here.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that the ribbon cutting for the hotel was great. I'm glad to see that it's open and it looks really great. So everybody did a good job in that project. Thank you.
Mr. Bachman.
I'm all set, thank you.
Ms. Beaton.
I'm fine.
Okay, I need to read a statement on the forensic audit of the Housing Commission that's complete. The Manistee City Council authorized Raymond to perform a forensic audit of the Housing Commission after the council became aware of several of the former executive director's employment contracts that were signed by former Housing Commission president were not brought to the Housing Commission for authorizing vote. One of the key audit findings is that the Housing Commission funds were sent to Riverside Housing LLC and instrumentally created for the Housing Commission and distributed as unauthorized bonuses to the former executive director and staff of the seven, totaling $78,153.13 since November of 2021, of which the former executive director received $23,349.32 of unauthorized bonuses. I, along with city manager Bill Gamble and Mayor Pro Tem James Grabowski and attorney Jeffrey Schroeder, met with members of the Housing Commission yesterday, operations manager Mark Sakaki, President Steve Fosdick, and Vice President Jim Smith to review the report and recommendations yesterday. It is unfortunate that the former executive director passed away and prior to the conclusion of this audit. I am dismayed that some members of the Housing Commission staff that received payments did not disclose the bonuses delaying the conclusion of the audit and adding unnecessary expense to the city. I appreciate the current Housing Commission President Steve Fosdick and Operations Manager Mark Sakaki for their assistance concluding this audit. We are looking forward to working with the Housing Commission to ensure the proper checks and balances are instituted so that this situation does not happen again. We will be forwarding the report to the appropriate authorities, including the State of Michigan Attorney General's Office and the United States Attorney's Office for their review. Copies of the audit summary are available by the projector if anybody wants them. Request to convene a closed session pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, PA 267 of 1976, pursuant to MCL 15.2681H, to discuss attorney-client privilege communication dated July 17th, 2023, regarding the City of Manastee's Housing Commission. Is there a motion?
I'll make a second.
Heather, would you please take roll?
Councilmember Bachmann.
Yes.
Councilmember Beaton.
Yes.
Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilmember Pratt.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grabowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin Pontiac. Motion approved.
Thank you.
Session.
Need a motion to adjourn?
Need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.